Well, my mom lives in Vegas, so I want this to be a very slanted interview.
Yes.
Very favorable.
I did not know that.
Let's talk about the Raiders going to Vegas.
That's right.
What's she doing in Vegas?
She owns Antiquities in Caesar's Palace, which has been there for over a couple centuries. Best stores in there. Very cool. Go in there. She'll sell you some wholesale. Tell her I sent you.
I will do that.
Who starts?
Okay, obvious question. No TV shows ever dead at this point. Everything's being brought back. Everything has a reunion. What's that process like? Having this thing, this great thing that you've created, and knowing that there's a very good chance that somebody's going to want you to do very, very excellent.
I've never been in any conversation about that subject where I felt like there was a clear agenda. You know, we talked about prequels, we did prequels right now, but we continue. But you know, it's sort of like when we did Africa, that was a situation where we were open to a spinoff, and the studio actually said, "Hey, we got this pitch from this other guy that sounds a lot like shit you've been talking about. Why don't you meet?" So there was this external force that kind of helped create the need for a spinoff. And I kind of think if we were going to do another spinoff, we would require some sort of like reason for being like that. Like, oh well, no one ever thought of that. Okay, that's an idea, but we don't sit. We've got other day jobs now, so we don't sit around thinking about spin-offs for Battlestar. And until someone steps up and says, you know, it's Baltar in the Civil War, it's hard to know what you would do. Like, you would do. Wait a minute, that's genius. I love it.
Were there any story arcs that you wanted to have on the show that you just didn't get around to doing?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we pretty much left it all in the field on the show. If there was a good idea, we sort of did it, or there was a reason why we didn't do it. You know, the idea of what we set out to do kind of changed over time. So there was an initial clump of storylines that we didn't end up doing just because the show evolved in a different direction. But yeah, I think we're pretty much feel like we had a chance to tell the story that we wanted to tell.
You mentioned in the video one of the things you did originally want to do is moving a lot more ships than you ended up doing. And there's a joke about like the mall and stuff like that. Like what in your mind really was the makeup?
Well, as part of the pitch was, okay, here's this whole civilian fleet, and TV at that point was more episodic than it is now. And so part of the way to sell the network for what we were doing was, oh, and don't worry, there's going to be all these individual stories. And this week we'll go to the school ship, and then we're going to go have a murder mystery over there, and we kind of thought that the fleet gave you an opportunity to bounce around and do different stories while you were doing the mythology. But we did the prison episode early on in season 1, and it just broke the bank on the show, and we quickly realized we just didn't have the budget to do that. And what ended up happening is it forced all the stories back aboard the Galactica, and it meant that the show then became much more about the fundamental mythology and those characters. And in some ways, it shortened the length of the show. Because if we had had the opportunity to bounce around, we probably could have teased it out for a few more years because you would have had an opportunity to go do other things. But as a result, it was all tightly focused on the Battlestar, and that storyline just like caught fire.
Yeah, we also needed a way to sell the show. And because we didn't know a lot about what was going to happen to the characters, it was kind of a no-brainer to go, well, naturally, we'll have various ships, and they'll go to the zoo, and they'll go to, you know, the deli, and they'll go, I mean, like, we'll have places for them to go.
You just sell it.
Yeah, that's right. And then,
yeah, don't worry, it's not going to be all about this military ship.
No.
The deli ship would have been fantastic.
Deli ship. I wish we had done the deli ship.
So in your first season, those episodes, the stories are pretty much being real time, back to back to back to back. Later seasons, it starts to spread out a little more into the story. Was there a difference in creating the show, any type of a thematic change or a change in the workflow to make that happen on the story level? Was there a reason for that kind of a shift?
meeting back the network.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of battling the network back and forth. I don't think so. I mean, the show just really evolved underneath our feet. You know, the writer's room would sort of come up with different ideas over time, and you just found storylines that lent themselves to different spans of time. I mean, when we did the biggest one we did was the jump ahead a year, and that was a conceptual thing. Let's try to do